Hello everyone, my name is David and I want to tell you a story that happened with my friend. Let's start the story. My fiancée chose her best friend over me when I was sick, so I calmly and methodically ended our entire relationship in a single night. Alright, Reddit. I need a sanity check. My 32 ex-fiancée, 29F, let's call her Brianna, and her entire circle of friends are calling me a manipulative monster. I, on the other hand, think I just calmly and logically responded to a critical system failure, but the fallout was significant, so I'm turning to you. Am I the a-hole? Brianna and I were together for 4 years, engaged for the last 6 months. On the surface, we were a great couple. I have a good job as a lead project manager, and was happy to be the primary provider. The lease on our apartment is solely in my name, as are all the utilities. The car she drives, our cell phone plan, the whole 9 yards. This was a joint decision we made when we moved in together. As my credit and income were stronger, she worked part-time as a social media manager, and her income was mostly for her personal spending. I thought we had a balanced, supportive partnership. The one recurring issue, the one crack in our foundation, was her male best friend, Mark, 30M. They've been friends since college, and their relationship is intense. He has a key to our apartment. He is a constant presence. If we have a disagreement, she calls him for advice before she even finishes the conversation with me. I've tried talking to her about boundaries calmly and respectfully multiple times. Each time I was dismissed as being jealous or insecure. She would always say, "Mark is my family. You just have to accept that." I accepted it because I trusted her. That was my mistake. Last Wednesday, I came down with a nasty case of the flu. I'm not talking about a little sniffle. I'm talking 103° fever, body aches, the whole miserable package. I was completely laid out on the couch, barely able to move. That Friday was the night of a huge concert for a band they both love. They had bought the tickets months ago. I of course told Brianna she should still go. I wasn't going to ask her to miss out. I just asked if she could check on me before she left and maybe drop off some more medicine on her way home. A reasonable request, I thought, for a woman you're supposed to be marrying. Around 5 p.m. on Friday, I was feeling worse. I called her to ask if she could pick up a specific kind of fever reducer on her way home from work. She told me she couldn't. She was already out getting ready for the concert with Mark. "Okay," I said, my voice weak. "Can you just make sure my glass of water is full before you go? And could you please text me when you're on your way home tonight?" "Actually," she said, her voice hesitant, "Mark and I were thinking of getting a hotel room downtown after the show. It'll be super late and it's easier than trying to get a cab back." I was silent for a moment. My fiancée was choosing to get a hotel room with her male best friend instead of coming home to her sick partner. "Brianna," I said, my voice quiet, "I have a high fever. I'm alone. I need you to come home tonight." And then she said the words that changed everything. She sighed, a heavy, annoyed sound. "Look, I know you're not feeling well, but I can't let Mark down. He's been looking forward to this for months. I already promised him. It's just one night." I waited for her to say something else, to soften it, to show a shred of concern for me. She didn't. The choice was clear. Her priority was not my health or my well-being. Her priority was not letting her best friend down. I felt a strange cold clarity wash over me. The fever, the body aches, they all seemed to fade into the background. I saw the entire structure of our relationship, and I saw that the central support beam was not just cracked, it was non-existent. "I see," I said, my voice completely flat. "Good," she said, relieved. "I'm glad you're not going to make a big deal out of this. I'll see you tomorrow." She hung up. I lay there on the couch for a long time. Then I made a decision. I was not going to make a big deal out of it. I was going to make a final deal out of it. Fueled by a sudden surge of adrenaline and a whole lot of ibuprofen, I got to work. It was a quiet, methodical process. First, I packed. I took 3 large suitcases and packed every single thing that belonged to me. Second, I made a series of phone calls. I called our cell phone provider and had her line, which was on my family plan, immediately suspended. I called the credit card company and reported the supplementary card I had given her as stolen, deactivating it instantly. I logged into all our shared streaming accounts and changed the passwords. Third, I went to my laptop. I drafted a polite, professional email to our landlord, giving my official 30-day notice to terminate the lease on the apartment. Finally, I sat down and wrote a short, simple note. I placed it on the clean, Empty kitchen counter next to her now useless apartment key. I took my own key, walked out the door, and closed it behind me for the last time. I drove to my parents' house where I knew I could crash for a few weeks, and I went to sleep. The note I left on the counter read, "Hope the show was worth it. Go be his priority." So Reddit, am I the a-hole for my reaction? She says I was diabolical and disproportionate. I think I just took her at her word. While the feedback from my original post has been overwhelmingly validating, a lot of you were asking for the details of the fallout. It was, as many of you predicted, spectacular. I spent Saturday recovering at my parents' house. My fever finally broke and my phone remained blissfully silent. I had blocked Brianna's number, but I knew the silence wouldn't last. The storm made landfall on Sunday afternoon. It began with a series of frantic emails from Brianna. The first one was confused. "Where are you? It's empty. Where did all your stuff go? And my key isn't working. Did you change the lock? Call me." The second email an hour later was angry. "This isn't funny. Alex, my phone isn't working. I had to use Mark's to even email you. What did you do? And the landlord just posted a notice of lease termination on the door. You need to call him and fix this right now." The final email sent late that night was pure, unfiltered panic. "Please just talk to me." "Okay, I get it. You're mad. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stayed at the hotel. But this is insane. You can't just disappear and cancel the lease. I have nowhere to go. All my stuff is here, and the credit card you gave me was declined at brunch today. It was so embarrassing. We need to talk. Please, Alex, I made a mistake." I didn't reply to any of them. The real story of their weekend came from an unexpected source. Mark's on-again, off-again girlfriend, a woman named Emily. She found me on social media and sent me a message. She said she had seen my post on Reddit and wanted to tell me that I was her new personal hero. According to Emily, Mark had told her he was going on a guy's weekend out of town. She only found out he was at a concert with my fiancée when she saw their posts on Instagram. She said this was a pattern with him, using other women for entertainment, and a place to stay while he was on a break from her. She told me that their triumphant return to my apartment on Sunday was a disaster. They walked in to find my note and the reality of their situation crashed down on them. Brianna's phone wasn't working. The Wi-Fi password had been changed. All the streaming services were logged out. The apartment was a ghost town of her belongings in a home that was no longer hers. Their romantic weekend immediately devolved into a bitter, screaming argument. She blamed him for encouraging her to stay at the hotel. He, upon realizing that the comfortable apartment with the free spending girlfriend was no longer a viable asset, apparently lost all interest in being her supportive best friend. According to Emily, he packed his bag and left her there in the middle of the empty apartment, telling her it was her mess to clean up. So my fiancée, who couldn't be bothered to come home to her sick partner, was now completely alone in a home she was being evicted from with no phone, no money, and no best friend. Her priority had abandoned her just as she had abandoned me. The past month has been a logistical process of formalizing my liberation. The legal and financial fallout for Brianna has been, from what I gather, a slow and painful grind. My lawyer, a sharp woman my father recommended, handled everything. We sent Brianna a formal letter via process server. The letter was a simple, brutal accounting of our separation. It stated that I had vacated the apartment and terminated the lease, as was my legal right. It included a detailed itemized list of every piece of furniture and major asset in the apartment, all of which I had purchased with attached receipts. The letter gave her two options. She could either purchase the items from me at a fair depreciated value, or I would have a moving company retrieve them on the final day of the lease. The letter also included a final itemized bill for her share of the expenses from the last month of our relationship, including the concert tickets which I had paid for. Her response was a desperate, rambling email from her lawyer, a guy who was clearly out of his depth. He tried to argue that she was entitled to half the assets as a common law partner and that I had maliciously and without warning made her homeless. My lawyer's reply was, I'm told, a work of art. She pointed out that our state has very strict requirements for common law marriage, none of which we met. She presented my actions not as malicious, but as a direct and logical consequence of Brianna's own stated priorities. The letter included a sworn affidavit from me detailing the events of that Friday, including her exact words. I can't let Mark down. The letter concluded by stating that if Brianna wished to pursue this matter in court, we would be more than happy to proceed. We would, of course, be subpoenaing Mark to testify under oath about the nature of their relationship and their stay at the hotel. Her lawyer went silent after that. The last thing they wanted was to have Mark on a witness stand, forced to answer questions about their relationship. Defeated legally, Brianna was forced to confront her new reality. She couldn't afford to buy the furniture. She couldn't afford to stay in the apartment. She had to spend the last few weeks of her tenancy living on an air mattress in an empty room, surrounded by boxes. The day of the move-out was the final quiet act. I was there with the movers and a neutral third party to supervise. Brianna was a ghost. All the fight, all the arrogance was gone. She just sat on the floor watching silently as the life she had taken for granted was packed up and taken away. She didn't speak to me. She didn't even look at me. As the movers were taking the last piece, our bed out the door, she finally spoke, her voice a hoarse whisper. Was it really just about the concert? I looked at her, at this woman who had become a stranger to me. No, I said. It was never about the concert. It was about a fever. It was about a choice. You made yours. I just made mine. It has been 6 months since I walked out of that apartment and into a new, better life. The chaos has long since faded, replaced by a quiet, steady sense of purpose. The final consequences of Brianna's decision have been delivered, not by me, but by the simple, unforgiving logic of the real world. After being forced to move out of the apartment, Brianna's life went into a tailspin. With no home, no money, and a shattered reputation, she had to move back in with her parents. The glamorous city life she had built on my foundation was gone. Her friendship with Mark, the man she couldn't let down, is over. He wanted a fun, no-strings-attached partner in crime, not a broke, desperate woman living in her childhood bedroom. He got what he wanted from her and he moved on. Her parents, I'm told, are not happy. They are supporting her, but they are also forcing her to take responsibility for the first time in her life. She had to get a full-time job to pay off the debts she had accumulated, including the final bill I had sent her. She is living a life of consequences, a concept she never seemed to grasp before. As for me, I have never been better. The first thing I did after moving out was to take a real vacation by myself. I went to the mountains for 2 weeks, hiking, clearing my head, and rediscovering who I was without her. I sold most of the furniture from the old apartment. It was all tainted with bad memories. I used the money to put a down payment on a small house of my own, a place with a yard and a workshop where I can work on my own projects. It's a foundation that is entirely my own. I've been focusing on my work and my business is thriving. The clarity and peace in my personal life have made me a better, more focused leader. I haven't started dating again yet. I'm taking some time to be on my own, to rebuild my own trust and my own judgment. But I'm not lonely. I'm just content. Brianna's choice that night was a simple one. She chose a concert over a commitment. She chose a friend over a fiancé. She chose a moment of fun over a lifetime of loyalty. She thought it was a small choice, a single night, but it was the final stress test on a structure that was already weak, and it caused a complete and total collapse. I didn't seek revenge. I just evacuated the building and let it fall, and I've never been more grateful for my own good judgment. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe for more tales like this. See you next time, friends.